Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the benevolent lineage masters. The supreme Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered, even in millions of eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, may we all generate the supreme bodhicitta. Let us continue studying the words of my perfect teacher by omniscient Patru Rinpoche. Previously, we discussed the 18 freedoms and advantages related to the Dharmas. We also discussed Venerable Longchenpa's teaching in The Wish-Fulfilling Treasury about avoiding the 16 kinds of situations of lacking freedoms. This time, we are covering the words of my perfect teacher more extensively. In terms of time, I would say that we have spent quite a lot on it. In terms of content, I have tried to include, from my own experiences and knowledge, so that I can provide you teachings that can be both meaningful and beneficial to help your practice along the path. My hope to you is that everyone must place the words of my perfect teacher as a priority and to truly study it right now. But more importantly, you must also put the corresponding teachings into genuine practice. You have to practice it. This year, we require everyone to study the words of my perfect teacher, to develop firm conviction and understanding on it, especially in the common preliminaries. In the past, whether in Tibet or in Han regions, although there were people studied and even taught on the words of my perfect teacher, it was rare to have the opportunity to practice each guidelines altogether while studying the text. So, after much consideration, I have finally decided to spend quite a bit of time on this text, requesting everyone here, both monastics and lay people, that you must all practice on the guidelines while studying it in class. If you only talk about it, pay lip service, but don't take the action to integrate every word from this Dharma teaching into your own mind stream. Eradicating afflictions can be extremely difficult. So I want to take this opportunity to repeatedly request everyone. For those who have the opportunity and time, please practice diligently in the same way you would in a retreat, especially the 4 preliminaries. The difficulty of obtaining the freedoms and advantages, the impermanence of life, the defects of samsara, and the infallible principle of cause and effect. A solid foundation must be built by prating on these 4 preliminaries. Building a firm foundation mostly depends on yourself. It's not like we can impose a set of constraints or use coercion to force you to practice. Doing so might have some temporary effects. But most importantly, everyone must practice on your own volition. Because if we didn't establish a solid foundation in the preliminaries, practicing some advanced Dharma superficially, though gaining some temporary experiences or attainments, but after a while, or when it comes to major issues concerning this life and the next, if your mind stream doesn't resonate with the 4 preliminaries, it's unlikely you will gain any real benefit. This is something we all know after studying for such a long time. Personally, although I am not an accomplished practitioner or a great Siddha, I can say that regarding the teachings of Buddhism, especially the Nyingma tradition, I count as someone who is familiar with some of the scriptures and teachings. I also practice in introspection, in observing my own mind. Through long-term experience and observation, I finally realized that, truly, if we haven't genuinely understood the preliminary practices, if we haven't gained any genuine insights from the practices, and if we haven't practiced each teaching steadily over a long period, then our practice will not be successfully completed. Otherwise, no matter how many teachers you've relied on, or how well versed you are in Dharma texts, how many different traditions you've studied, The end result will be planting some virtuous seeds in your mind stream, but still extremely difficult to uproot the causes of samsara. So this time around, many of you are fortunate enough to have this opportunity to practice. And now that you've obtained this opportunity, don't let it slip away. You must focus your mind, even if it means temporarily putting other agendas aside. Just wholeheartedly focus on contemplating the rarity of human life and the impermanence of life. In the last 20-some classes, we've discussed the practical meditation methods from finding comfort and ease in the nature of mind of the great perfection, 3 bases and 3 virtues. I also emphasize that you should continue contemplating the rarity of human life for the next 2 to 3 months. This time we are also progressing on the extraordinary preliminaries aspect, such as prostrations, in parallel with the common preliminary contemplations. You can continue to do prostrations alongside the contemplation. That's absolutely fine. We have set aside dedicated time for everyone. For this year and the next year, our Academy is requesting Dharma friends from Vajra, Dudul, Ling and Bodhi Society to primarily focus on practice while not neglecting study and contemplation. This is the principle we are following. Because the precious human life passes by very quickly. So I hope that during the next 2 years, fellow Dharma friends can develop a deep understanding in their mind stream on the rarity of human life. Not just talking about it theoretically and not just know it at the surface level. Understanding the content on paper is simple. Even the current 3rd or 4th grade students can read the content of the words of my perfect teacher, let alone the many intellectuals we have here. In the Northeast region, there are many primary school students can casually explain the content of the words of my perfect teacher. They can explain it well, even better than me sometimes. But I believe that, although my practice is poor, they only talk about it in theory. Whereas I also teach with insights from my practice. They know a little bit about the rarity of human life and so on, but they may not have reflected on it in their hearts. There are so many approaches to contemplate, such as, is this aspect obtained? Is that aspect obtained? If it's not obtained, what should I do? One should find any means to obtain it. If it's obtained, is it a temporary state, or will it remain constant throughout my life? Therefore, many experienced practitioners will have different approaches to visualization and meditation practice. So this time we are requesting everyone, including the fellow Dharma friends, those who have vowed to serve the sangha and all sentient beings, to meditate every morning on the principles of the precious human life. This should not be at all difficult. As long as you have developed conviction and understanding in the true Dharma, you won't sleep in late, and you won't be busy with other trivial things. The main obstacle is that in our minds, besides clinging to trivial worldly matters, we haven't developed genuine belief in reincarnation and the rarity of human life. The reason you haven't developed this belief is that you find all sorts of excuses not to delve into the profound study. Even if you study, you do it superficially. This behavior is very shameful. I know some lay practitioners who always are saying they're busy with this and that. They use an array of different excuses every day to avoid studying the Dharma. If they procrastinate studying the Dharma, then the spiritual practice of the Dharma is even more out of the question. Now, if we look around and see, considering of the current global population, individuals devoted to the study of Buddhism constitute a remarkably small fraction. Even among those who do study Buddhism, many only practice the superficial rituals. Some may study and contemplate the teachings, but very few truly practice the profound aspects of these teachings. Some people practice, but they do so randomly and out of order, reaching for advanced practices straight away at the beginning. They enjoy talking about, have you received the Guru's heart empowerment? Or the empowerment of the great Vajrabhairava and so on? Then they make receiving these empowerments as their ultimate goal. They seek to receive a great empowerment, hoping it alone can bring them to achieve realization immediately, to fly off to the pure realms, today to the pure land of bliss to enjoy all its pleasures, and tomorrow to the copper-colored mountain, flying here and there every day, being blissful and free. This is their goal. But they never consider starting practice from the foundation, even though, on the surface, this seems like only the fundamentals. In reality, it is an extremely important and core teaching. Not too long ago, I gave a teaching on the Vajrakilaya. Afterwards, I noticed that many of you exhibited great faith, because on that day, all the furbus in our academy were sold out. And the next day, all the furbus in Sirtar County were sold out as well. At that time, it coincided with the holidays. I heard that all the furbus at Wuhu Street in Chengdu and many shops in Beijing had already been sold out too. Many of you are rather attached to these type of things. I have seen this in some monastics as well. It's like how some Tibetan men carry their long knives. You carry your long furba on your waist. Of course, the merits of the furba are inconceivable, but when I see some of you, I truly feel sorry, as you have no knowledge on what a furba is or what the generation and completion stages of practice are. You only wear it like a knife, thinking it looks appealing. Or you may think to yourself, I can use this to subdue demons. I can stab anyone who creates obstacles for me. Perhaps that's how you think. I'm not sure of the details, because I don't have telepathy. But what saddens me is that I haven't heard any of you carry the words of my perfect teacher with you when you went out. This is the most important piece of text in my life. Whenever I have time, I would flip through it and read it. But perhaps you don't. If I ask by raise of hands, who carries your Dharma text when you go out? That really shows if you truly value the teaching or not. The way you study Buddhism is completely different from how we studied it. When we, at the beginning, encountered the teachings of the words of my perfect teacher, we had to start from the rarity of human life. Bit by bit, the appreciation for the freedoms and advantages formed in our minds. Now, 20 years have passed. I think this is a blessing gained from practicing the preliminaries, that we are still able to remain in the academy. Back then, among the many who took ordination at the same time as us, although some of them really strived for the advanced Dharma, their later practices were not successful. So I hope this time around, the fellow practitioners can seize the great opportunity. Speaking for myself, although I haven't practiced very well, I have spent quite a long time personally guiding everyone and requesting all of you to practice. During this long period of time, each of you should establish a solid foundation in the 4 preliminaries. I really want to help you building a solid foundation, because your life is so precious. How many times in a person's life do you get to practice such Dharma? This is rare. Perhaps in this lifetime, being able to practice the great perfection preliminaries in such an extensive manner would be the first and also the last time. The same goes for me, on guiding you as well. But I hope that during this process, many of you will gain insights on the difficulty to find the freedoms and advantages. This insight should be heartfelt and not artificially. The human life endowed with freedoms and advantages is indeed difficult to obtain. When you're gazing upon the endless expanse of beings, one can't help but feel a deep sense of compassion. None of these beings study Buddhism, yet human life is so precious. Why don't they study Buddha Dharma? Once everyone's mind give rise to such thoughts, then you will start to make use of this life, not idly passing the time, but truly engaging in diligent practice. I know myself as an ordinary and inferior person, So I am not guaranteeing that you will achieve enlightenment immediately, or that you will immediately attain the first bhumi. In this degenerate age, especially now the fruition age has passed, that's impossible. But if each of you genuinely developed a solid foundation, then your practice during this lifetime will not waver or get pushed aside. Your aspirations for future lives will be genuine and steady. It is extremely excellent. In certain temples of the Han region, when you speak with some senior monks and lay practitioners, you often hear nothing about their concern for future lives. They only talk about clairvoyance or miracles, or things only concern about this life. Such as when they start discussing politics, many jargons effortlessly flow out of them. But when it comes to discussing the Dharma, especially when talking about concepts like karma and profound Buddhist philosophy, they basically fall silent. That's how it is now. So we truly must study the Dharma to ultimately integrate it into our hearts. I believe this is the intention of lineage masters who have passed down the Dharma. Next we'll begin. Although the content we discuss each day may not be extensive, I hope the principles we talk about this time will help you understand the practice of the preliminaries. Because I do tend to improvise, as some parts may not be very easy, and the sequence may not necessarily be entirely coherent, but Patrul Rinpoche's "The Words of My Perfect Teacher" carries supreme blessings. Everyone should always have the text with them. The Way of Bodhisattva's Way is an overall introduction on the Mahayana path, on the merits and benefits of generating bodhicitta. But compared to The Words of My Perfect Teacher, I think in the aspects of truly eradicating mental afflictions and self-attachment, The Words of My Perfect Teacher has more practical pith instructions. Especially in our practice of the preliminaries, having pith instructions, and at the same time, being granted with extraordinary blessings and strength by the lineage masters. When such causes and conditions unite together, signs of warmth or compassion and wisdom can't help but to arise within our mind streams. Next, let's look at the original text. Before these 16 factors that leave no opportunity for the practice have been carefully ruled out. 16 factors, as mentioned earlier by Venerable Longchenpa. People in these decadent times may look as if they have all the freedoms and advantages and are true practitioners of the Dharma. But in this degenerate age, this world of the 5 corruptions, the views and behaviors of sentient beings are becoming increasingly degenerate and deteriorating. It's true. During this time, on the surface, many people may believe, I have already obtained the precious human life. They feel great about themselves. On the appearance, they may even be monastics or lay practitioners. Or they may say that they have long since taken refuge, so they must be practitioners. They themselves and others may also agree. Whether one is a Dharma king on his throne, a lama beneath his ceremonial parasol, a hermit in mountain solitude, one who has withdrawn from worldly affairs, or anyone who holds themselves in high regard, each might believe they are practicing the Dharma. But as long as they remain bound by these limiting conditions, they have not entered the true path. This paragraph is extremely important. If we do not make detailed observation, seemingly we may be practitioners. And some may even think they're more than just ordinary practitioners, lay people or monastics. Even some great masters on high Dharma thrones, great Dharma kings, great tulkus, and great realized beings, they may believe that their whole life has been lived with the respect and praise of others. Or, as we often say, they live amid flowers and applause. In this case, they think, my practice is certainly very, very good. They believe this themselves, and many others do too. Such and such a master, such and such a teacher is definitely an accomplished being. he must be extraordinary. In our minds, we consider him a true spiritual friend. But if we do not carefully observe these principles discussed earlier, we may be fooled by their appearance. Whether these so-called great masters under the parasol, whether in the Han or Tibetan regions, no matter if they are invited by or used to be under the exquisite parasols. Also, those who have lived long in remote mountains. Some have been in retreat for 9 years without ever coming out. They think, I am a long-time ascetic practitioner. And some wander from place to place, what we call wandering renunciants, abandoning all worldly affairs. These renunciants, on the surface, they appear practicing well. Some even appear to have no need for any fame or money. There are people prostrating all the way to Lhasa from here. On the surface, this all seems virtuous. But if we do not observe carefully, it is very possible that their mind streams are bound by some of the 16 non-freedoms mentioned by Venerable Longchenpa. Some are bound by ignorance, some by greed and anger. Some violate disciplines and samaya vows, and so on. Many causes of lack of freedoms can very likely bind their mind streams. Since this is the case, they haven't even truly entered the genuine Dharma practice themselves, let alone liberating all sentient beings. They haven't stepped through the door of genuine Dharma, which is very, very frightening. I often think this way. For example, some lay practitioners in the Han region are very respectful of me. I observe my own mind streams and I know clearly about my own state of being. I genuinely think that I'm not worth such veneration. There are many similar cases where people just judge a book by its cover. For instance, there are people residing in the sangha without pure precepts, sitting on the Dharma throne but poorly managing many affairs of the sangha. Such situations, in their next life, there is only one path, which is falling into the lower realms. Perhaps they will fall into the hells, hungry ghost realms, or animal realms. Such high monks and great masters falling into hell is common. In the past, in the chronicles of Mount Wutai, there is a story of a human skin drum. This is actually a true story. In the Tang Dynasty, there was a monastic named Fa Ai. He had served as the abbot for 20 years. Later, he used the sangha's property to privately buy a piece of land for himself. He later gave this land to one of his disciples named Minghui to use. But after that, when Fa Ai passed away, he was reborn as an ox. Minghui used the ox to plough the land for 30 years. Later, when they were about to sell the ox appeared in a dream that night and said, I am the former Dharma instructor, Fa Ai. You best now use this land for the sangha. Since I have turned into an ox, my ox skin should best be made into a drum for the sangha. Otherwise, even if this land turns into the ocean, my bad karma will not be eradicated still. The next day, that very ox rammed itself to death. Minghui was very frightened and immediately gathered the sangha and offered the land to them. The ox skin was made into a drum, used in a temple. They said it was placed in the Manjushri hall. This drum was called the human skin drum, and the name of the old monk was written on it. When you think about it, at that time, the monk was also someone respected by many. But back then, because he didn't have the concept of the precious human life and the understanding of karma and its effects in his mind stream, he recklessly committed many wrong actions. There are many such examples. In the biography of Song Dynasty high monks, it is recorded that the monk Shide, who was initially found by Master Fengen, so he was named as Shide, which means found. Later, in Gorking Monastery, he was put in charge of herding cattle. Once, while the sangha was conducting the fortnightly confession ritual, he herded the cattle over to them. The monastics then asked him to drive the cattle away, saying, "Don't disturb us during this ritual." At that time, Shide said, "In that case, I won't herd the cattle anymore." Then the monastic in the monastery replied, "If you don't herd the cattle, will you just spend all day doing nothing but eating?" Shide was actually a great realized being and an incarnation of a bodhisattva. He said, "Good point. If all I do is eating the sangha's food without studying, contemplating, and practicing the Dharma, doing nothing else, then my future will definitely be an ox. Look at this monastery. Many of the past great monks and Vinaya masters from here have all become oxen in my cattle. For example, Vinaya Master Hongjing and great monk Guangchao, and so on, many of them have become these oxen." At first, the monastics didn't believe him. But then Shide asked, "You can call each monk's name, and the ox will step out." And indeed, when called, they all stepped out. At that time, Shide said, "In your previous life, you didn't uphold the precepts. Though you had a human face, you had the mind of an animal. Now you suffer this misfortune. But whom can you blame?" Shide recited this verse, and all the monastics there developed true conviction in karma. So some people might wonder, so all high monks and monastics will fall into the lower realms, but ordinary worldly people won't, right? Absolutely not. Ordinary worldly people are even more dangerous. Some lay people and monastics at least have the opportunity to practice the Dharma. But the worldly beings don't even have the such opportunities. The bad karma they create is even more frightening. So if we do not truly realize the rarity of human life in our mind streams, it will affect significant consequences later in life, even in lives after lives. So first, we must take the time to take introspection and contemplation bit by bit. This is very important. Sometimes I think about the 18 freedoms and advantages mentioned earlier should be approached as how elementary students doing their homework, checking whether it is complete, while observing carefully at each one. What we call practice is also like this. If feel nothing during the process of practice, this could only mean you are not properly focused. If you truly have faith in the Dharma, look at each teaching that Patrul Rinpoche has given us. Contemplate one by one is what we call practice. Now, some people think that practice must involve closing your eyes, or visualizing a deity with an image in front of you is true practice. Especially, I see that some Dharma friends are particularly poor at practicing the 4 preliminaries. Some have practiced a while ago, but seem to have no insight. If that's the case, it indicates that your practice has become a superficial formality. Then in your future practice, your faith will easily be wavered and lost. Therefore, I think our regular practice must deeply penetrate our hearts. This is extremely important. That means when we practice, we must not practice hurriedly and carelessly. So before we blindly assuming the forms of Dharma practice, we should check our own state of mind in detail to see whether or not we have all the 34 aspects of the freedoms and advantages. When we first start studying the Dharma, there is no need to rush. Don't be in such a hurry to assume a symbolic appearance. Here, some Dharma practitioners were especially eager to take on ordination. They were rushing every day. For example, during the 4 months of observation period, I would tell them to wait a bit. But after 2 or 3 days, they would ask, "Can I get ordained now?" I really can't wait any longer. Can you shave my head a bit earlier? They would ask every day. Later, with 2 or 3 months still left, because there was no other choice, I shaved their heads. After their heads were shaven, they were so happy. I feel so comfortable. Thank you so much. Now I really have no hair. Don't I look wonderful? They think that without hair, this is the appearance of a monastic. But the most important thing is that in your heart, you truly need to develop a firm conviction and understanding of Dharma. This is more important. In some places now, people still think it's necessary to have a refuge certificate, a Dharma name, or to perform a ceremony. These are rituals, and they are necessary too. But at the core, whether you are a monastic or a layperson, the external appearance does not matter much. The most crucial thing is to carefully observe the 18 freedoms and advantages mentioned above, as well as the 16 lack of freedoms discussed by Venerable Longchenpa. See if you have these, and observe yourself repeatedly. So now I really hope that people in the big cities will truly come to realize these preliminary instructions, since some of their previous practices were just a formality, and that the Dharma had not fully integrated into their hearts yet. The feeling of the Dharma integrating into the heart is completely different than keeping external appearance. We can see this in many high monastics and great masters. After truly realize the precious human life, they are not busy with worldly trifles. You can see it in their behavior. It is fully revealed. What they say, what they do, in their daily conduct, you can see the difference. That they place greatest importance on future lives and genuine practice. They would never develop worldly interests, such as watching TV, movies, or various videos. Those are completely deceptive. Watching worldly programs, various external distractions, for them, these are not of great meaning or value. Therefore, we should be able to look at our own behaviors and see if indeed you can tick off every box as described above, whether we are adequate in the contemplation of the instruction. But in this degenerate age, it is indeed very difficult to maintain all these endowments. Maybe you occasionally can maintain it, but difficult to sustain for a long term. Some of the principles mentioned above are still quite difficult to achieve. If you are truly endowed with all, then you should be truly happy about it. Moreover, you should sincerely and repeatedly contemplate in this way. Now that I have obtained such a rare and precious human life, I must not waste it in vain, but must wholeheartedly practice the true Dharma. If you observe every one of the 34 principles mentioned above, that shows that person is truly excellent. But for all the Dharma friends here, please ask yourselves, have you observed this in detail on yourselves? If you haven't before, starting from today, you really need to compare these 34 principles with your own mind stream one by one. This isn't just lip service. I'm not saying this without having observed myself. That's not the case. I have done it. In Venerable Longchenpa's 30 Pieces of Heart Advice, it says, seeing others carrying out some activities, my mind also observed and compared my actions to theirs. I too have practiced observing my own mind this way. I dare not say all the time. But ever since encountering this Dharma until now, I've never stopped the effort of introspection. So some of you here who have never practiced introspection before and claim you've practiced Dharma differently, that direction is already wrong. It's very hard to see true insights in your practice. So check if you have all the freedoms and advantages. If you do, be happy. And after being happy, sincerely think, this precious human life of mine, I must not waste it in vain. because this human life is extremely precious, from the perspective of its causes, from analogy, and from its result in nature. Its cause is that, by observing pure precepts, one can attain a precious human body. Its conditions require generosity and so on, as well as making aspirations. So Master Vasubandhu also said, to attain a fortunate rebirth, precepts are important. To be free from afflictions, practice is important. In order to obtain human life, with the opportunity to be free from afflictions, we first need pure precepts. The greed, hatred, and delusion in our mind streams, since beginningless time, must be removed through practice. Without practice, it's impossible to drive away afflictions. Some people say, I have too many afflictions. I've read many books. I've recited countless Diamond Sutras, but I still have so much afflictions. I still have anger and greed. Why? Well, this is because you haven't practiced. If you truly practiced, the afflictions in our mind stream would definitely be purified. This is an inevitable law, because they are complete opposite. When the fire is extremely strong, the slight coldness will be driven away. Similarly, with this rare opportunity, by relying on pure precepts, by relying on faith, and so on, one can obtain this human life. In the Garland of Jewels, it says, through faith, one avoids non-freedoms. Through precepts, one attains a fortunate rebirth. With faith, one can have a body endowed with freedoms, eliminating obstacles which leave no time or space for practice. And with precepts, one can be reborn in a fortunate state in the future. If you have neither faith nor precepts, then in your next life, you are very likely to be reborn into the 3 lower realms. So, Dharma practitioners here, this is not just lip service. From the depths of your heart, you must develop a strong longing for the true Dharma. This is very important. Patrul Rinpoche also said, the true Dharma is right beside you. You don't need to seek it externally. Some practitioner couldn't succeed in their practices. They would go to this master, then to that master. Or today, they seek Dharma in this monastery, and tomorrow, they go to that monastery. Sometimes, when I hear their stories, I silently smile to myself. Why do I smile? Oh, because I know that no matter which master this person goes to, they will never succeed in their practice. Because I know they haven't laid a solid foundation, nor have they reflected within and truly practiced. They have only been seeking Dharma externally. If you keep seeking externally, you will never find it. Actually, everyone should already have the Dharma within them. It depends on whether you put in the effort. Success in practice depends on yourself. Indeed, if you put in the effort regarding the rarity of life, after a few decades, your practice will definitely be stable. If your practice is stable over the long term, your Dharma practice will definitely succeed. But people tend to practice half-heartedly and only go halfway. Even for any worldly task, if you have no patience, no perseverance, the task will not be completed either. So in the process of studying, contemplating, and practicing, if you break the continuum of oral transmission or are unwilling to practice, this is what is called an obstacle created by Mara. In the past, Guru Rinpoche gave a supreme teaching to Dakini Yeshe Tsogyal. He said, anything that obstructs your practice is an obstacle created by Mara. Whether it creates an internal obstacle or creates an external obstacle through circumstances, whatever hinders your practice is an obstacle created by Mara. For example, if I were to receive a transmission today, and someone says, you should leave this place, causing me interrupt the transmission and my practice, this is called an obstacle created by Mara. Some may think Mara obstacles includes having nightmares or encountering a terrifying demon. They feel, this is the real Mara. And when a Dharma friend calls with a sweet voice, people usually think that Dharma friends definitely cannot be obstacles created by Mara. That master's voice is so compassionate and lovely. After hearing it, I don't need to sleep for 3 or 4 days. My heart feels so comfortable, so happy. This master, sometimes when I close my eyes, his smile appears before me, and my heart feels so warm. But if such friends and master were to create obstacle to your practice, or if your previous practice has encountered difficulty due to them, regardless of the form they take, according to Guru Rinpoche's teaching, this is called an obstacle created by Mara. So Dharma friends, you should always be cautious. If the 34 principles mentioned above are not fully possessed, you should find ways to fully equip yourself with them. Should you find, however, that some aspects are missing, try to acquire them by whatever means may be possible. At all times, you must concentrate on observing your own mind stream to see if it is equipped with these freedoms and advantages. This isn't something you can observe in just 1 or 2 days. We must frequently observe at all times, throughout your lifetime. Many senior practitioners are truly our role models. Their practice is not bound by time or environment. For example, when they are in a remote mountain, they continuously perform their daily recitations and practices. If they go to the city, they still don't interrupt their practice. If they go to a hospital or any environment, the environment and time do not affect them. But for some, when they are in a quiet mountain, they do very well, like an arhat made of glass, very stable, very good, steady and unmoving. But when they get to the city, they don't do their daily practices for many days. Reflect upon the scenario. We originally required daily recitation of the Samantabhadra aspiration prayer, then proceeding with the following stages of generating bodhicitta, these principles. That's our daily practice. But I heard that some of you, for 2 or 3 days, or several days, skipped reciting any scriptures at all. This definitely shows that the external environment still has a great influence on you. In this way, your practice is not very diligent, to be honest. I really appreciate those practitioners who are not affected by the environment and time. In the same way that we humans eat every day, no matter where we are, in any environment, a true practitioner should stick to their practice schedule. This is called keeping one's practice as priority. This is true perseverance and patience. If you haven't gone through such detailed observation, then even if only one of these freedoms and advantages is incomplete, you do not possess the conditions for truly practicing the sublime Dharma. Among the 16 principles we mentioned above, if you don't observe carefully, you might not know. But after careful observation, if one of the causes and conditions is incomplete, then the great Dharma practice we are discussing will absolutely not be complete. For example, when driving a car, all the other causes and conditions may be complete, but if its front wheels don't work, then there's no way for it to operate. Even if the driver's skills are excellent and all other conditions are complete, or if the car has no fuel, no motor oil can work, right? No motor oil won't work either. I don't know how to drive. Does every car need motor oil? No, right? Those who have driven a car know. Have you driven a car? Would you like to drive? Why? Okay, as mentioned earlier, even to accomplish an ordinary mundane task in the present moment, it requires many causes and conditions to unite together. How could the long-term goal of practicing the true Dharma not require the aggregated causes and conditions then? We know that in the world, as I casually mentioned earlier, even the smallest thing needs the causes and conditions to be complete. Otherwise, this task must be put aside, as there's no way to accomplish it. If even ordinary little matters in the world are treated like this, let alone when it comes to significant matters like achieving the two benefits for self and others, and practicing to attain Buddhahood. Such great matters, how could they not require complete causes and conditions? So now, some monks, some practitioners, their practice is unsuccessful because the causes and conditions are not complete. Among the causes and conditions, the most crucial is the rarity of life. We mentioned 34 principles earlier, and these 34 are critical. Everyone should carefully observe them regularly. If one or two of them are incomplete, it may cause a break in your practice. There is no need to go everywhere casting divinations and having fortune-tellings, asking why your practice is unsuccessful. People would come to me and ask, "Recently, I haven't been able to practice. I haven't had any signs of success. I still haven't seen my yidam." Why? There's no need to ask around. The problem must lie all the way back to the beginning. Contemplating the rarity of human life, the most critical aspect. If there is no problem here, then your practice will definitely be smooth. So, we need to understand the real tip for success in practice. Here, it uses a very simple worldly analogy to explain. Imagine a traveler who wishes to make tea. Making tea requires many elements and conditions. The teapot, water, firewood, and fire itself, and so on. This mainly refers to an ancient lifestyle in Tibet, right? When traveling on the road, people would take some rest. Now, people in the Han region, there might not be such a term as boiling tea. But for Tibetans, for example, when traveling from Serta to Ganzi, in the past, there was no way to travel by car or plane. It was impossible. People usually walked or rode horses. Traveling such a long way, you definitely need to rest in the middle and eat lunch. So when you eat lunch, you stop in the middle and start boiling tea. What they mean by boiling tea here, but actually, it means stopping in the middle to eat. It's like when the car from Serta heads to Burkham or Chengdu and stops in the middle to eat. At that time, people of ancient times usually carried fire-starting tools and tinder. At this time, boiling tea requires these kinds of conditions. Among them, even just starting a fire is the same. You must have all the necessary causes and conditions, like flint, firestone, and tinder. If, among them, only the tinder is lacking, even if you have all the other tools, it is useless. You would have to abandon the whole idea of boiling tea. There's no way to do it. Earlier, when boiling tea on the road, there was water, and all the necessary food was there. So when it comes time to start a fire, if we follow the tradition of ancient living, you must have all three things: tinder, firestone, and fire iron. I think I've mentioned this before as well. When I was young, people in Tibet used firestone, which is a small white-coloured stone, and tinder, which looks like the white flower-like grass. We often see these in Lorong now. In autumn, it would be sun-dried. After drying, it would be slowly rubbed until very soft. Then the ancient people usually kept it in their pockets. When needed, they would take out the fire iron striker, add a little tinder on the small white stone, then rub it with the fire iron. The firestone and fire iron, during the striking process, would emit fire sparks. When the sparks fell on the tinder, it would immediately start to smoke. When it started to smoke, you would add it to the grass or paper, so that the fire would immediately start. Patrul Rinpoche taught this teaching according to the lifestyle of that time. When taking a rest on the road, people would boil tea and cook food. If you had only the fire iron and firestone, but the tinder was used up or it was raining, after the rain, the tinder was often wet, and at that time, no matter how much the sparks were to land on it, it wouldn't catch fire. So because just one small piece of tinder was missing, the whole thing had to be set aside. There was no way to set up fire. The same principle applies here. The 34 conditions mentioned earlier may not seem very important, but among them, for example, violating precepts, breaking vows, or if your afflictions are severe, would impede your practice. If your afflictions are severe, you see, and you are in a group where practice is going well, then later, this person's afflictions became very severe, and they didn't get along with their Vajra Sangha. They got angry and left. From then on, because of this one cause and condition, throughout their entire life, whether it's the rarity of human life or later stages of practice, they had to abandon them all. So people without wisdom don't make observations on themselves. Once you do observe, you will learn from your own and others' experiences. Indeed, among these causes and conditions, if even one is incomplete, practice will not be successful. You must understand this. The same principle applies here. If among these freedoms and advantages, just one is incomplete, then you simply do not have the conditions for genuine Dharma practice. If you don't have the conditions for genuine Dharma practice, it's really a great pity. Now, when we have the freedom and favourable conditions, if we don't practice now, when will we ever have the conditions in the future? His Holiness, Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, and I both particularly liked Master Chandrakirti's verse in the Madhyamakavatara, when, at times being free and in a favourable place, if one fails to tame oneself, one will follow others and fall into dangerous places. By what means can one ever get out of that situation? If we now, when we have freedom and all favourable conditions, with such excellent conditions, if we cannot use right awareness and right mindfulness to control our sense faculties, to tame our afflictions, and diligently practice it, if I don't practice well now with such a precious human life, in the future, when I fall into the animal realm, or into hell or the hungry ghost realm, by what means will I be able to pull myself out? There will be no assurance at all. I use this scriptural evidence to repeatedly observe my own mind stream. Indeed, many Dharma friends present here have many favourable conditions. Some people say, I'm too busy and so on. But actually, as long as we cherish our human life, we will find solutions. If we don't cherish it, this human life will pass very quickly. The sutras say, the human body is difficult to obtain but easy to lose. Time passes quickly and is hard to retrieve. Human life is very difficult to obtain, and indeed, it is very easy to lose. One's prime years slip away so swiftly that in the blink of an eye, old age has already arrived. And time is also very easy to lose, but hard to retrieve. When you really make a mistake with your human life or create bad karma, it's extremely difficult to recover from it. The Brahma Net Sutra also says, once the human body is lost, it's irretrievable for thousands of kalpas. Once you lose this human life, then in millions of kalpas, when will you truly recover it? So, we must rely on the teachings of good spiritual friends and the supreme instructions of the noble ones. Subsequently, one must cultivate an attitude of self-salvation. This is extremely important. Everyone should observe and see whether they need to practice the rarity of human life. If you don't practice, Only listening superficially is not enough. Merely listening is very different from practicing. Knowing and practicing and experiencing are also very different. So distinguish these differences through actually practice by yourself. All right, that's it for today.
Bandara